Okay, welcome to episode 44 of the Sean McGuinness podcast. Hope everyone is having a great week so far. Now today, I'm going to touch on this a little bit. Won't take it too much time, but it will make a good topic as well. If you're watching some video, you see me little Superman coffee cup. Superman was my favourite character. Growing up, my mom actually bought me this. So much so that when I used to go to daycare, she told me I used to have, she could never get the Superman suit off me. And she wanted to watch the thing. I must have been wearing it for weeks straight. And I used to run amok when she tried to take it off me. And one day, she said, you can't wear that to play school. Daycare, play school, whatever it was. And I said, nah, I'll just put clothes over it and I'll be Clark Kent. See, so I still had that some kind of brains back then. Probably same IQ now, but what I want to talk about today, we're going to go over a few different topics, okay? This was brought on by a video someone showed me during the week. Annoyingly, I have to touch on this, but it will make for a kind of good education as well. One of the, I'm going to say, trainers in the quotation marks, Shannon Ponton, he's from The Biggest Loser, and everyone should know by now that if someone labels himself a celebrity trainer or is on any of these Biggest Loser shows, that should just be the credential to do the opposite of what they say. I think Gillian Michaels was called out last week by a few people, laying on, obviously all these real smart people, and she said something about eating too much protein, how it's really bad for you, and said, I don't want to get into the science of it. And then when asked about the science of it, she couldn't talk about it. Or when asked about studies, what she was saying, she couldn't produce any studies. And obviously that's completely wrong. Everyone debunked what she was saying. And then all these people turned their comments off. Some people that can't be made show of. But anyway, that was the American version. The Australian version, one of the trainers on it, Shannon Ponton, came out and put it on his Instagram. And it wouldn't annoy me unless these people have a platform that unfortunately some people think they have good credentials. I think he has 30,000 people to influence on Instagram. And these people, probably because he's been on TV, trust him to an extent. And he put out a post about nutrition saying how everyone, no matter gender, weight, height, athleticism, basal metabolic rate, the body fat, lean muscle, activity, whether they train 4 times a day, once, don't train at all, don't move, can't move, should be on 1,200 to 1,500 calories. And it's funny because why these people are just saying, don't do this diet, don't do that diet. What this fella is actually prescribing is a diet. Yet it's a stupid diet. Ironically, The Biggest Loser, I think they used to give them about 800 to 1,000 calories a day. These are people weighing, 120, 150, where when I've trained people at that weight, their calorie deficit sometimes is around 3,000 calories. To lose weight, someone could be at that weight. I've had clients eat 3,000 calories a day and drop a kilo a week. And they're giving them 800 calories and making them exercise for hours a day. Obviously, they lose loads of weight. And don't even get me started on how psychologically, how they F up people psychologically in regards what's realistic for weight loss. I'd have people losing 0.5% to 1% of body weight a week, which is, from the science, a great sustainable rate of fat loss. Means you're not going to lose any muscle mass or hardly any muscle mass, and you're going to be able to repeat that, and it's not a big impact on your lifestyle, etc. That's the scientific rates, and then these people are watching the shows thinking I should be losing 1 kilo, 2 kilos, 3 kilos a day, a week. And then when you have those expectations in your head, what they say, the difference between your expectations and reality is unhappiness. Or happiness is the difference between your expectations and reality. So they actually do good from what science says, but they're watching these stupid shows, and then they're feeling guilty and shame for actually giving up. When you're on track, you just need to keep doing what you're doing, as well as all these other behavioral issues and just actually killing these people with the training we've talked about before. Absolute madness. I don't know how it gets on TV. Well, I do, but yeah, I do know how it gets on TV. What am I saying? Because most of the stuff they put on there is absolute garbage. And they've done follow-ups with these people of The Biggest Loser, and they're actually I think about 80-90%, and they've done loads of studies on this. Something Hall, Stuart Hall, butcher his name, Peter Hall. He's a very big weight loss researcher. He's done studies how everyone gained the weight back. And obviously some people are actually in a worse position now, which they don't show. And funny enough, in America, I think they actually do follow-up shows with the people. So the people that have lost weight and The Biggest Loser gained the back. Now they have their own reality shows following them around individually. Again, struggling to lose weight just because they've been set up for failure so many times. So this is where this fella's coming from. He's coming from his background. Okay, I said, okay, hopefully that's just TV. Someone sent me this video of him saying everyone should be on 1,200, 1,500 calories, which is absolutely crazy. As I said, I'm going to get on my phone here. For, let's say, 100 kilo person, okay, we're setting sustainable fat loss rates. We've got body weight in pounds. So if it's in kilos, multiply it by 2.2. And then multiply that by about, say if they're active, by about 12, just to see. Anywhere between 10 and 12, we'll say 12. Okay, so if a 100 kilo person, relatively active, we'll say active being, does over 8,000 steps a day. That person's calorie deficit, again, without knowing them, just throwing that number out there of the simple calculator we can use, will be 2,640 calories. Okay, now let's get a 150 kilo person. 2.2. Okay, and let's multiply by same. Okay, so 150 kilo person, their calorie deficit, if they're kind of active, we'll say over 8,000 steps a day. And active will probably mean less the heavier someone is, because they'll burn even more calories when they're moving, because they have to carry around that much weight. So that person calorie deficit could be 3,960. Okay, again, just throwing numbers out there. So this fella is telling people to eat half of that. Okay, now I've done a post before about when people get their calorie deficits set out. Most of it is a moderate calorie deficit, so it's around 20% below your requirements. Okay, reason being, and then we can talk about obviously the pros and, well, not the pros, the cons to prescribing this. A moderate calorie deficit is going to allow someone to eat a good amount of food, keep the hunger appetite in check, hit the protein requirements. Obviously, hopefully then if they're eating other whole foods, hit all these other micronutrients, get enough nutrients in, and leave a few hundred calories to be able to fit whatever foods and drinks they enjoy in there. So let's someone lives a normal life, they're starting a nutrition plan, they calculate their calories. If they just do that, it's not a big stress or impact on their lifestyle. That's going to enable them roughly to lose 0.5% to 1% of body weight a week. So if it's 100 kilos, 0.5 to a kilo a week. They're losing it. They're still enabling them to live their life. They still might have the same social events, routines that they already go to. They go, I know Phil Learney's talked about this before. They have the Friday night with their friends. And instead of them going and ordering a salad and bringing all the attention to themselves, whether that person may have tried a million times before to lose weight, their friends look and go, oh, he's trying again. You draw on that social pressure yourself. You can still go out and make a good decision and maybe eat. Phil Ernie uses the example of just switching to a burger and chips instead of the pizza. Pizza maybe, I don't know, 1,200 calories. Whereas he might get a burger and chips for 500. Suddenly, Phil saved him 500 calories. He's allowed to fit that in to his overall week. He's happy. He's had his friends, social occasions. He hasn't brought attention to himself. And suddenly, he's starting to lose weight. And his friends go, how the fuck are you losing weight? You're still eating that burger and chips. So, if we think of a seesaw effect, in behavioral kind of change, the bigger the change, the bigger the potential for bouncing back. And it's the same at calorie deficit, and we can say the same thing actually. So the more a change disrupts someone's life, the bigger the chance that person's going to revert back to where they were before. If we can give someone a moderate approach, and I actually had someone today message me on one of my online clients. She messaged me and said, Sean, I'm basically, I think since July, she's down, she's down 12 kilos. 12 kilos in 7 months. She said, I'm not going to win any awards for fat loss rates or transformations, but there hasn't been any impact on my lifestyle. I felt it's been easy, relatively easy to what I've tried before. That's what we want. Out of people I deal with, there's hardly anyone that can do a mad, disciplined and regimented approach. Just people have lives, they have careers, COVID hits, and they have kids. COVID hit, they have kids, responsibilities, etc., etc. So they already have a lot of stress in their life. Behavioural change and big disruption to their life is another stress, and that stress may tip them over the edge. And then when someone's on that mad chronic stress, it's been seen they revert back to old behaviours. Whereas in terms of changing someone's food and calories, when we give someone a moderate calorie deficit, not only does it allow them kind of more room for error, but it means we can slowly change their behaviors with food over time. So like I've talked about before, someone may start off and they may be eating McDonald's 3 times a day, okay? At the start, they may be eating 3 Big Macs, chips, and 3 Cokes. We may go, okay, calculate that person's calories. Instead of telling them not to eat McDonald's, which was what I probably would have done in the past as a coach, I'm going to explain what I used to do. I would basically try to go way too optimal too quick. So I'll go, okay, this is what the science says. We need to get protein, whole protein every meal, veggies, fruits, hit all these targets. I'll be setting them up for failure too fast. I'm trying to get that person to sprint before they can walk. So what I've probably gone now in that moderate approach is less of an impact disruption. So we go, okay, let's get the Big Mac, let's get small chips and a Coke Zero. That may be enough to fit within those calories we calculated. And that may be enough for that person to lose the rate, the optimal kind of rates we're talking about, fat loss rates. Perfect. Over time, what we can do then, so once we get the quantity of calories in check, then we can start to increase the quality of those calories as they go. So what might start out as 3 Big Macs, large chips, and 3 Cokes, may go to 3 Big Macs, small chips, Coke Zeros, may go to 3 Big Macs, a salad, Coke Zeros, may go to whatever, 3 Big Macs, salad, water. Well, and you can slowly start to introduce better stuff over time. still leaving them a little bit, a few hundred calories, whatever, each day or each week for them to have whatever foods they enjoy. Suddenly you're moving them along the spectrum of behavioral change rather than trying to jump ahead. Okay, so it's working from a nutrition perspective, fat loss perspective, and a behavioralist perspective. So, if we go back to what Mr. Ponton says, when you basically prescribe calories, diets that are way too low, there's a behavioral perspective going on that you're basically setting that person up for failure. Because most people are in that all or nothing mentality anyway. When they think of fat loss, they think they need to be rigid and they need to bring that perfectionist mentality, all or nothing, black or white, whatever you want to call it. So they go, okay, I need to cut out everything. I'm going to do dry January. I'm going to cut out all the alcohol. I'm going to cut out all the chocolate, all the sugar, all this. I'm going to cut it all out. Because to lose fat, I need to do that. You don't. But that's what people think. When we fall into this all or nothing mentality, okay, it's not if you fail. It's a matter of when you fail. You're going to fail. I'm going to do dry January. Come February, I'm going to drink like I've missed the months of drinking. I'm going to drink for 2 months. Okay? And I'm going to average my drinking out like I drank in January anyway. So what's the point in that? I don't get that. It's like when people do detoxes. I'm going to do a detox. 1 or 2 weeks detox. Yet go back to the same lifestyle full of toxins. What you're better off doing is just cut out a few toxins out of your lifestyle a little bit each day. And then do that for a long period of time. Rather wasting your money and effort doing drastic and then going back to normal. People do drastic weight loss and go back to normal and then gain the weight back. So this is from a behavior perspective, and obviously physiology and psychology cannot be separated. People try to separate them. Nutrition, old school nutrition made the mistake of just thinking in terms of calories, but forgetting that we don't eat calories, we eat food, and we do so for numerous reasons. Emotional reasons, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we need to look at a holistic perspective, and then everything ties back in with each other. So people are not, when they go on rigid, drastic diets work. You're in a calorie deficit, you're going to lose weight. Okay, 100%. When you fail, you haven't learned how to moderate your intake. So when you just think you need to eat only perfect whole foods and cut out everything you enjoy, you have not learned how to construct a nutrition plan that includes foods you enjoy. If you're cutting out a food that you could never live without, why are you doing that? Because at some point you're going to eat it again, and if you don't know how to, you're going to go back to normal. I'm going to go low carb. Yeah, I'm going to see you in 3 months and you're going to be bathing in carbs. Then what? You have not learned and educated yourself on the skill of what's in foods, so you have no idea how to include that food back into your lifestyle in a way that still hits your calorie needs each day. So imagine getting someone and going, okay, I can never live without 2 slices of bread with my eggs in the morning. Cool. Let's learn how many calories are in those. Let's learn to fit those into a calorie deficit. Okay? And for example, the 150 calories a slice, whatever it is. Suddenly that person's aware for the rest of their life how many calories are in bread. So they don't need to go, oh, fuck it, I've eaten 1 slice, I might as well eat the whole thing. They know, okay, today I'm going to eat this, I'm going to eat this, and do a little calculation, blah, 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 like you would with your savings. Oh, cool, I can fit 2 slices in for breakfast. Perfect. I don't feel the need to binge out. See, when you say no to the humans, I say you can't have that. We want them more. Marketers do it. Why do you think the Gucci shop's empty, but they make a line in the front? They're building up that exclusivity and anticipation, okay, and it's kind of physical restriction, mental restriction. Why do you think married men probably are more appealing to women? Because they can't have them. People are always chasing what they can't have. One of my mates actually, he used to always say he's just gonna. He was always dumbfounded how we used to go out, and the lads who had girlfriends, obviously, girls, we used to want them more. We used to joke about getting a girlfriend just to get a girlfriend. Anyway, mental restriction. Okay, so obviously, don't think of, like Phil Learning says, the white polar bear. What are you thinking about? You think about the white polar bear. Don't press the red button. How appealing does that red button? How appealing is it to press now? After I said you can't press it. How, when there's a sign, don't step on the grass, all you want to do is dance on the grass. All you want to do is jump on the grass now. Whereas if there was no sign, you wouldn't care. Don't graffiti on this wall. And you just see the wall absolutely wrecked with graffiti. But if they didn't say anything, you wouldn't have wanted to do it. So this ties back into this psychological component where basically including foods and drinks you enjoy into your plan in small moderation is referred to as flexible dieting. Flexible dieting works from the kind of mental perspective that you're giving somebody the autonomy and freedom to be able to construct their own plan. When a plan's too rigid and there's too much mental restriction, it has the opposite effect of making you want them more. But when you give someone the autonomy, they can have it if they want. They just need to know to fit it in, and the pros and cons of, okay, you can have a cake, but if you fit it into your day, it may mean you might have to go without dinner because you've just blown out your or used your calories for that day. And a lot of the time, I see this work. When you give people autonomy, they don't want that as much. So yes, there needs to be, it's kind of a balance between some kind of structure, because you can't just tell everyone to eat everything. So there needs to be some kind of structure within the plan, but also a nice bit of autonomy in there. And funny, there's some, I think, the self-determination theory in psychology. Autonomy is one of the things that is tied into your motivation. When you give people autonomy, when you give people autonomy in the workplace, freedom to do a little bit of what they want, what do you know? They come up with Google, Gmail, they come up with all these things, but their happiness scale goes up as well, and they want to work. But when you're just purely very strict and don't give them any freedom, it backfires. They don't want to work for you, etc. So that's the psychological perspective of why it doesn't work. From a physical perspective, obviously, if someone is in a very drastic calorie deficit, so you're telling heavy people to go on 1,200-1,500 calories, what's going to happen? Well, there's certain responses in your body to stop you from starving. Starvation responses. This is not, people say, oh, the starvation response, starvation mode isn't real. I think what they kind of get wrong, because your starvation mechanisms kick in when you diet too hard. So when you go into too much a calorie deficit, or you've been dieting for too long, not too long, but you've been dieting for a long time, stuff's going to happen. What do you think happens when you stop breathing? Your body forces you to breathe. When you diet too hard, you get hungrier. All this, part of your brain, the hypothalamus, regulates everything. Your body temperature, just wants the homeostasis. Wants you to stay, just don't do anything. Just be the same. Don't do anything. So when you start to diet, all these signals happen and communicate with your brain. There's hormones that are released in your fat cells, leptin, etc., ghrelin, CCK. All these appetite and hunger hormones communicate your hypothalamus. All these signals, and you get hungrier. Okay, and your appetite goes up, and you start to crave more, we'll say, sugary foods, and when you eat, you don't feel as full because these hormones in your stomach communicate with your brain, so you don't feel as full and satiated. So in today's world, obviously, when that happens, I used the example last week of self-control and people wishing for more self-control when they haven't controlled their environment they're in. So there's temptation everywhere in their environment, but they're wishing for more self-control, when the best thing to do would be to take the temptation out of the environment. So I use the example of someone wishing for more self-control with loads of temptation around them. It's kind of like someone trying to not cheat on their partner. We're going to use the example of a man, not being sexist, but let's say a man's trying not to cheat on his partner. He's just go, oh, wish I had more self-control. But all he's doing all day is hanging around in brothels. He's just sitting there sipping coffee, having a drink. He has heaps of cash. He's sitting in brothels, strip clubs, whatever you want. He's in the red light district. Pre-COVID, probably COVID now. You walk around with masks on, I don't know. Haven't been. And that temptation is obviously going to increase the chance of him failing. At some point, he's going to slip up. Add that alcohol in the mix, etc. So, going on vicious low-calorie diets, combined with today's world of food that's everywhere. Every time you switch on the TV, $1 McDonald's meal, okay? There's high-calorie food everywhere. So you combine hunger plus high-calorie food that's so accessible everywhere. It's going to increase the chance of failure. It's kind of like the person that's not trying to cheat, and he's abstaining already. So his libido's through the roof. And then you add that he just hangs around in brothels. What's you gonna think's happen? What's gonna happen? Again, it's not a case of if, it's when. It's when. As well as that, when it comes to low calorie diets, your metabolism drops, you get more lethargic, you start to actually move less, you burn less calories in your body temperature goes down. So you're actually burning less calories. So sometimes going more drastic, your body evens the score out than if you're in a moderate calorie deficit. So sometimes you end up losing or not losing any weight. The same as someone may lose the same amount of weight being in more of a drastic calorie deficit. Let me start that again. I'm sorry. Somebody may result in losing the same amount of weight on a drastic calorie diet as somebody on a moderate calorie diet. Why? Because when someone's on a more drastic calorie diet, they're burning less calories and they're moving around less. So suddenly they're in less of a calorie deficit and they're in the same amount of a calorie deficit as the moderate one. Not from taking in less, but the more drastic one is now burning less. So it's evened up. And they've seen this in studies. Suddenly, that person's not losing as much because they're not aware of all these subconscious things that goes on. And your body's smart again. Another starvation response, you become more lethargic, you move around less, you conserve energy, you burn less calories when you train, you burn less calories, your body temperature goes down, so in itself you're burning less calories, you blink less, you fidget less, you slur your words, you're not talking as fast, I move my hands around here, you're not doing that. So all this random movement is referred to as NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and it's the amount of activity that's kind of subconscious, you don't know. So you see people that are probably, let's say, never get that fat, one of the mechanisms they've seen that's kind of genetic when it comes to fat loss. I'm not saying there's a fat gene. One of the things that keeps people lean is leaner people. And again, this is just genetic. Some people are blessed with it, some aren't. If you aren't, deal with it. If you are, deal with it. I'm probably one of those people. So they're referred to as neat freaks. So they actually burn more calories because they're fidgeting, they're moving, they can't sit still. When I'm here, my legs are flying around. I'm tapping my legs, doing a little Michael Flatley on the ground. My feet doesn't stop moving. I'm blinking. Gestures, blah blah blah. All this stuff burns hundreds of calories each day. Okay, not a blessing so much on me when I'm trying to bulk up. But yeah, neat freaks. So kind of leaner people. One of the mechanisms that keeps them lean, but genetically is that neat. Again, why when someone's dieting, we want to make sure that their steps don't drop. So when we drop our calories in a controlled manner, not listening to this Shannon Ponton, when we do so slowly, we want to make sure that our steps don't drop, because this has probably happened when I used to train people pre-Fitbits, and which is why this Fitbit technology is brilliant as a way of monitoring how many calories not how many calories are burning, but your steps are one of the main things that govern how many calories you're burning. Although the number on what it says on it may be inaccurate, we can use the amount of steps as a variable of calories out. Before, without this, I kind of didn't know what my clients were doing outside of the gym. I knew what they were eating, I knew when they were in the gym, but because I couldn't monitor the activity outside the gym, sometimes I've dropped people's calories. I'm like, why isn't this person losing weight? Obviously it comes down to this kind of stuff that sets in. So again, what I'm saying is a tip in there is when you're in a moderate calorie deficit, and you may just adjust your calories down a little bit if you've hit a plateau or whatever, or you put yourself in a calorie deficit, make sure your steps don't drop below what they normally are, because if they do, then suddenly you've just evened out the drop in calories with the drop in activity. They cancel each other out. Okay, there was a bit in there. I'm going to leave that for today. So to sum it up, every diet works. Stupid diets, Shannon Ponton's 1200, 1500 calorie diet, keto, intermittent fasting. But if they do not, well, firstly, if they're too drastic from a physiological point of view, your body's going to fight back against you. And that's going to increase your chance of failure, especially in today's world. So it's going to equal you gaining the fat back. And actually, they've seen now when they put yourself in calorie deficits, and the more drastic, the bigger this effect is. As you're dieting, your body's kind of setting itself up to regain fat. It's primed to regain fat. So when you do binge out, because you've put yourself on this diet, you're now going to put yourself in a worse position. And then unfortunately, the vicious cycle happens. You go, well, how did I lose weight the first time? Well, I lost 5 kilos doing this stupid diet, so I might as well do it again to try to get this weight off. Cue a cycle of you just gaining weight by being in a diet, which is crazy. So if you just did nothing, you'd be in a better position than if you took these people's advice. Again, why the Biggest Loser, don't do a reunion. So that's the physiological point of view. And then from the psychological point of view, we're not learning, we're not approaching it from a behavioral change perspective, slowly building habits on top of each other, being able to maintain it for lifelong weight loss maintenance. We're buying into that all or nothing mentality. We're not teaching moderation. We're not learning how to create a flexible approach that ties in with our social outings, that ties in with our food preferences, allows us to create autonomy, allows us to free ourselves from that mental restriction, and allows us to create a good plan. And as I said, for most people, a moderate calorie deficit is the best. If I'm going to give advice to the majority of people listening, just create a moderate calorie deficit and then add to it as you go. Lauren McDonald does have what's called a protein sparing modified diet. It's kind of more of a drastic diet, but it's aimed at people that are naturally have great habits. So we'll kind of say fitness people. Fitness people always train. They always eat good food. When you have these habits in place, you can push the pedal down a little bit because it's not a big disruptance on your lifestyle, because that's the way you already are already. So that person is, say, an advanced, and they're just getting a little bit more advanced. Where when people who are beginning try to get advanced, it's just a car crash. You can't do it because you don't have those behaviors in place. Okay, again, you're trying to sprint before you can even crawl. Whereas the advanced people, and these are all the people that get great transformations you see online, they're already have great habits, so they can go a little bit more drastic than what they are at the moment because it's a small behavioral change, so they can do it. Whereas when someone who overhauls the whole life, that seesaw effect comes back to bite them. So yeah, as I said, when we overhaul the whole life, the bigger the behavioral change, the bigger the bounce back to old habits. Same goes for a calorie deficit. The more drastic, the bigger the calorie deficit, the bigger the potential bounce back will be, thus leaving you in a worse position. Obviously, the psychology and physiology work together to kind of throw oil on the fire of what this fellow was saying. So there you go. Do the opposite of what he says. Listen to this. Listen to reputable people. Hashtag stop making stupid people rich. And set yourself up for success. Okay. There we go. As always, if anyone has any questions, feel free to message me on Instagram. I reply to all the messages. Send me an email, Sean at Live Long Performance. More than happy to help everyone, especially people that listen to this podcast, because you are legends. And yes, there we go. It's Monday at the time of me recording this. On Wednesday, we have Patrick McKeown coming on the podcast, who wrote The Oxygen Advantage, and we're going to talk all about breathing, his breathing methods. I'm going to say it's a new thing, but it's kind of newer thing in the fitness industry. The effect of proper breathing mechanics has on our physiology. When we're not breathing properly, it's another stress on top of our lifestyle. And as well as that, interesting enough, from my perspective, he uses these methods that are clinically trialed to help cure or definitely help people with asthma. From an asthma sufferer myself in the past, especially, and this will be very interesting. Then, on a behavior perspective, we have Dr. Melissa Davis coming on the podcast, who wrote Evidence-Based Habit Changing the week after. So we have some great guests lined up. So keep tuning in every Monday, as always, whether you're listening to this, doing your walk, doing your cardio, you might be pushing the prowler, doing a push-up, you might be lying on the couch, you might have a Superman cup of coffee like I do here. Hope you enjoyed it. Sign up to my email list to keep up to date what I'm doing, everything I'm giving away, all in the bio of my Instagram. And there we go, signing out from episode 44. I'll see you all soon.